Let's go through this workflow one more time. So here in our Movies app, let's open up models.py. Here's our movie class. I'm going to add a new attribute called date created. So date underline created. We set this to models, the datetime field. And here we can optionally supply a default value. Now here we can import the datetime class from Python standard library and write some code like this, datetime.now. But the problem with this approach is that this datetime object is not aware of time zone. A better approach is to use the time zone object in Django because that object is aware of the time zone. And later in the future, when we display this datetime value to the user, that object will automatically take care of translating that datetime to the user's time zone. So let's delete this. On the top, from Django.utils, let's import the time zone class. Now, down the bottom, we set the default argument to timezone.now. Now note that here I'm not calling this method. I'm simply passing a reference to the now method. If I call this method, when I create a migration, the current datetime will be hard-coded in our migration. Let me show you what happens. So here I'm going to call this method, save the changes. Now we need to create a migration. So here on the terminal, let's run Python manage.py make migrations. We got a warning. It seems you set a fixed datetime value as a default for this field. What does this mean? Well, we'll have to look at this migration number 2, and it's called movie date created. So let's go to our project. Here in the migrations folder, let's have a look at this migration. So in the list of operations, we have this operation for adding a field to an existing table. Here's the name of our model or table, and this is the name of the new field, and you can see its type is set to a datetime field. So far, so good. But look at the default value. It's hard-coded here, and that is the current datetime on my machine. We don't want this to happen. We want this value to be calculated at runtime when we insert a new record in this table. So to fix that, we need to come back to our movie class, and instead of calling the now method, we simply pass a reference to it. Now save the changes. Now we need to create a new migration. So let's open up the terminal and run Python manage.py make migrations one more time. All right, now we have migration number 3. Let's take a quick look at this migration. There you go. So here we have an operation of type alter field. So this operation is going to go to the movie table and alter a field called date created. And this is how it's going to alter this field. So it's going to set the default to django.utils.timezone.now. So note that the current datetime is not hard-coded in our migration. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply these 2 migrations to our database. And by the way, make sure to never delete any of these migrations. Otherwise, you're going to run into all sorts of issues. Because the purpose of each migration is to take the database one step forward. When you delete one of these migrations, there would be a missing step. So do not ever delete a migration here. So back in the terminal, let's run Python manage.py migrate. Okay, the second and third migrations are applied. Beautiful. Now here in our database, you can see our movie table has this new field, date created. Beautiful. Now one more thing before I finish this lecture. As you have seen, each migration is essentially a Python class that determines how our database should be updated. Now, when we run the migrate command, Django is going to look at these migrations that are not applied, and based on the operations that they define, it's going to generate some SQL statements to send to the database. If you're curious what SQL statements are sent to the database, you can use the SQL migrate command. Let me show you. So let's say we want to know what SQL statements are generated as a result of applying this third migration. So here on the terminal, we run Python manage.py. Instead of migrate, we're going to pass SQL migrate, and then we specify our app. In this case, the Movies app. So we go in this app and pick a specific migration. So here in the Movies app, inside the migrations folder, we have 3 migrations, and they're prefixed with a number that uniquely identifies each migration. So I'm going to pick the first migration. So back to the terminal, let's add 0001. All right, this is the exact SQL statement that is sent to the database. So for creating the movies table, we have this create table statement. Here is the name of the table. Next to that, you can see all the columns, their type, and so on.